Falsifying history by destroying cities. Cities have been the cradles of civilization for millennia, bearing witness to humanity's greatest achievements and darkest moments. They are the repositories of history, culture, and identity. But what happens when cities fall? What happens when they are deliberately destroyed? In this video, we delve into one of history's most shocking and underappreciated secrets, how the destruction of cities has been used to alter, erase, and falsify the historical record. Prepare for a journey through time, as we explore the cities lost to history and the hidden forces that shaped their fate. The destruction of cities isn't just about rubble, it's about rewriting the past. Throughout the ages, cities have been more than just places of habitation. They are the epicenters of culture, commerce, religion, and politics. But history has a darker side, one that is often hidden in plain sight. Cities have been systematically destroyed to erase powerful cultures, silence voices of resistance, and rewrite the very narratives that shape our world. Whether it's through war, conquest, or neglect, the cities that are destroyed are more than just buildings, they are the gatekeepers of forgotten histories. So, how have these cities been obliterated, and why? And what stories have been lost in the ashes? Let's begin by looking at the ancient world. Number 1. The ancient world, cities as targets of conquest. One of the most iconic examples of a city destroyed to alter the historical narrative is the fall of Carthage. In 146 BCE, the mighty Roman Empire defeated the Carthaginian forces after a bloody series of conflicts known as the Punic Wars. But this wasn't just about a military victory, it was a complete erasure of a rival civilization. After Carthage's defeat, the Romans didn't simply conquer, they obliterated. Carthage was burned to the ground, its buildings and infrastructure reduced to rubble. The Romans even went so far as to sow salt into the land, ensuring that no crops could grow and that the city would never rise again. Carthage was more than a city, it was a symbol of resistance. By destroying Carthage, Rome not only eliminated a political rival, but also erased the cultural and economic influence of the Carthaginian civilization. A civilization known for its innovation in navigation, commerce, and military strategy was erased from history. The destruction of Carthage allowed Rome to dominate the Mediterranean, and, for centuries, the true history of Carthage would remain buried beneath the soil. Fast forward to ancient Greece, and we encounter the legendary city of Troy, made famous by Homer's Iliad. For centuries, Troy was believed to be nothing more than myth. But when archaeologists uncovered its ruins in the 19th century, they revealed a once great city that had been destroyed by the Greeks. While the story of Troy's fall was immortalized in legend, the real destruction of Troy was strategically used by the Greeks to establish their dominance in the region. The city was ravaged, and its history was overshadowed by the Greek narrative of conquest. What happens when legend erases reality? The fall of Troy was more than just a story of war, it was an act of cultural erasure. By destroying Troy, the Greeks not only defeated their enemies, but also established themselves as the ultimate force in the ancient Mediterranean world. The rich cultural contributions of Troy were lost in the fire, leaving behind only the Greek version of events. Jumping forward to the rise of the Persian Empire, we arrive at the legendary city of Persepolis. Built by Darius the Great and his successors, Persepolis was not only an administrative center, but also a symbol of Persian power and cultural sophistication. But in 330 BCE, Alexander the Great sacked Persepolis in one of the most famous acts of conquest in history. When Alexander burned Persepolis, it wasn't just a city, it was a civilization. Although some believe that the destruction of Persepolis was accidental, many historians argue that Alexander's forces deliberately set fire to the city to symbolize the downfall of the Persian Empire. This destruction wasn't just about seizing power, it was about erasing a rival culture and rewriting history. Persepolis was a city that embodied Persian greatness, and by burning it, Alexander sought to diminish the power and legacy of Persia, reinforcing the Greek narrative of superiority. Number 2. The Middle Ages, religious and political destruction. Moving into the Middle Ages, the destruction of cities took on a religious dimension. The sacking of Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade was not just a battle, it was a deliberate act to undermine the Byzantine Empire and the Eastern Orthodox Church. Originally intended as a campaign to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim control, the Crusaders instead turned their sights on Constantinople, one of the greatest cities of the medieval world. Constantinople, a symbol of Christian power in the East, destroyed for political gain. During the sack, the Crusaders looted priceless relics, destroyed libraries, and razed religious institutions. This wasn't just about a military victory, it was about dismantling the cultural and religious identity of the Byzantine Empire. By capturing Constantinople, the Crusaders sought to replace the Eastern Orthodox influence with Roman Catholicism, erasing an entire cultural and religious legacy. Jerusalem, the holy city for three major religions, has seen its fair share of destruction. During the First Crusade in 1099, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem from the Muslims. In the aftermath, the city was ravaged, and its Muslim and Jewish inhabitants were massacred. This destruction was not only about military conquest, it was an attempt to reshape Jerusalem's identity in a Christian mold. Jerusalem's destruction wasn't just about war, it was about rewriting religious history. The Crusaders sought to eliminate the Muslim and Jewish presence in the city, turning it into a Christian stronghold. This deliberate destruction and reconstruction of the city was part of a larger religious agenda to control the narrative of who owned Jerusalem, and by extension, who controlled the religious history of the region. Number 3, the Age of Empires and Colonization. The destruction of cities wasn't confined to ancient or medieval times. The colonial era saw vast cities destroyed to eliminate indigenous cultures. When the Spanish conquered the Aztec Empire, they didn't just take the gold, they obliterated Tenochtitlan, the grand capital of the Aztecs, and built Mexico City atop its ruins. Tenochtitlan, a thriving city replaced by the colonial narrative. Tenochtitlan, one of the largest cities in the world at the time, was destroyed by the Spanish in 1521. The city's intricate canals, massive temples, and vibrant marketplaces were erased, and the Spanish rebuilt it in their image. This wasn't merely conquest, it was the destruction of an entire civilization's history to make room for European dominance. Even in the modern era, cities continue to be destroyed, not by armies, but by the forces of economic change. Urban renewal projects and gentrification often result in the erasure of entire communities and their histories. In cities like New York, London, and San Francisco, old neighborhoods and historic landmarks are replaced with high-end real estate and luxury developments. When cities are torn down for profit, what stories are lost? While these projects promise economic growth and modernization, they also displace long-standing communities and erase the cultural identity of neighborhoods. Gentrification is the modern form of city destruction, one that silently rewrites the history of a place by replacing the old with the new. Number 4, the destruction of modern cities and their narratives. In modern times, the destruction of cities has taken on a new, horrifying form: war. The Syrian civil war and the bombing of Aleppo are recent examples of how cities are not just destroyed physically, but also culturally. Aleppo, once a thriving cultural hub in the Middle East, was decimated in the war, and its rich history was wiped out in the process. Aleppo's destruction is more than just a war, it's a loss of history. By reducing Aleppo to rubble, the forces involved not only devastated its infrastructure, but also wiped away the stories of its people. Aleppo's historical significance, from its ancient souks to its medieval architecture, was obliterated in a matter of years. The destruction of Aleppo is a vivid example of how modern conflicts can rewrite the history of cities and cultures. As we look to the future, there is hope. Technology is playing a key role in preserving the memories of cities and cultures that have been destroyed. Through digital archives, 3D models, and virtual reality, we are able to reconstruct lost cities and ensure their histories live on. The preservation of history is the key to ensuring we never forget. While cities may be physically destroyed, the stories they hold do not have to be lost forever. It's up to us to ensure that we preserve these memories, not just for the sake of history, but for the generations that will come after us. Number 5, the role of war in erasing cities. During World War II, cities like Dresden became symbols of war's devastating impact, not just through military action, but through cultural erasure. In 1945, Dresden, known as Florence on the Elbe, was bombed into ruins by the Allies, targeting civilian infrastructure. This wasn't only about defeating the enemy, it was about breaking the morale of the German population and erasing a cultural landmark. Dresden, when the city became a symbol of total war. The bombing of Dresden left scars far beyond the physical destruction of buildings. It destroyed an entire cultural identity. The city's erasure from history serves as a chilling reminder of how war can reshape not only borders, but memories. Number 6. Colonialism's destructive legacy. When European colonialists arrived in the Americas, they didn't just conquer, they destroyed. Tenochtitlan, the mighty Aztec capital, was obliterated in 1521 by the Spanish, who built Mexico City on top of its ruins. This wasn't just a military conquest, it was an attempt to wipe out a whole culture and replace it with European ideals. Tenochtitlan, a thriving empire erased for empire building. By dismantling Tenochtitlan, the Spanish not only claimed territory, they erased the very identity of an indigenous civilization, replacing its history with their own. This practice of erasure was replicated across colonies worldwide, reshaping the cultural landscape permanently. Number 7. Gentrification and the modern erasure. In modern cities, the destruction of neighborhoods often takes a different form: gentrification. As older communities are displaced for luxury developments, entire cultural histories are erased. What was once a vibrant neighborhood becomes sanitized, with new, wealthier residents replacing long-standing communities. Gentrification, the silent destruction of communities. While not violent in the traditional sense, gentrification is a modern form of city destruction. It wipes out the identity of a place, forcing out its original inhabitants and erasing the stories that once defined it. The fight to preserve these communities is just as important as protecting the cities of the past. History is written by the victors, but it is also shaped by the cities they leave behind. The destruction of cities has been used to control narratives, erase cultures, and erase the very stories that make us who we are. But as long as we remember, the stories will never fade. It's time for us to share and protect the histories of the cities that have been lost. Let us preserve these memories and keep the past alive for future generations. What city or story do you think has been erased from history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos on history's hidden truths. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay informed and be part of the conversation.